Today, we're diving into a guide for a college fraternity. But, forget everything you think you know about Greek life. This is actually a fascinating look at a super analytical way to make a huge life decision. We're going to break down how this guide turns the kind of vague idea of finding your people into hard data, scores, and a really clear strategy. And that's the real question, isn't it? In a high-stakes place like college or heck, even a new job, how do you really choose your people? How do you look past all the surface-level stuff and find a place where you're actually going to thrive? Well, this guide has an answer, and it's a surprisingly rigorous system. Okay, so let's get right into it. This one quote from the source material, it just sets the entire tone. It draws a really clear line in the sand. We are not analyzing a stereotypical party house here. We're looking at a culture that, according to this guide, is all about composure and having real standards. And that contrast is the absolute key to understanding the whole decision framework that follows. So, before we can even get to the numbers and the scores, we have to understand the subject of this whole analysis. This isn't just any club. It's a chapter with some seriously deep historical roots. And as you're about to see, that context, well, it changes everything. And right away, you can see how the guide establishes legitimacy. I mean, we're talking about a group founded way back in 1840, officially recognized by its college, with a current lease and everything. This is not some rogue operation. That history and that official status are framed as the bedrock of its culture, a culture that works with the institution, not against it. And that right there becomes a crucial data point for the rest of the analysis. Okay, so the history gives us the context. But let's be real, what's the payoff? Every group like this promises a great network, but this guide actually tries to slap a number on it, turning a vague promise into something you can actually measure. And boom, here it is, the first hard number the guide gives us, a 67 out of 100 for alumni value. Okay, so what in the world does a 67 actually get you? So here's the crucial thing to understand. A 67 is not a guarantee. It's not a golden ticket. It represents potential. The network is really strong in those traditional fields. Think law, finance, where a warm intro is literally everything. But the guide is super clear about this. The value only comes if you do the work. The heritage might help you get that 20-minute Zoom call. It's on you to turn it into a real opportunity. It's a tool, not a ticket.
All right, so that's the professional score. What about the social scene? Well, true to form, this guide doesn't bother with vague words like fun. It just gives it a number.
For the stereotypical frat lifestyle, it scores a 55 out of 100. And for what the guide calls social success, a 52. So what does this all mean when you put it together? Well, when you see the numbers side by side like this, the guide's message becomes crystal clear. The professional payoff, sitting there at a 67, is valued much higher than the party lifestyle at 55. The guide argues the scene is, quote, edited. It's more about quality events than just chaos. And that slight edge in social success, it concludes it really only helps guys who already present well. The hierarchy of values is unmistakable. Professional payoff comes way before social clout. Okay. Now we get to what is by far the most unusual analytical tool in this entire guide. It actually tries to measure brotherhood by creating a scale for platonic intimacy and comfort levels between members. We're just going to approach this neutrally as a framework. First, the clinical definition. The guide calls it the homoerotic level and defines it as a 10-point scale measuring the degree of platonic intimacy and physical ease. Really, the goal here is just to create a vocabulary to talk about different levels of closeness inside a group like this. So you can see how this works. Let's just walk the scale a bit. The guide defines level 3 as your basic acquaintanceship. Talking sports, playing Xbox. Then level 4 is the bromance tier. Now you're cooking together, you're gym partners, maybe even some real emotional support. By level 5, physical ease is just normal. It's casual. It's not a performance. And then you get to level 6, which moves into more rowdy, performative stuff. You can see that clear progression of comfort and trust. So where does this specific chapter land? Well, the guide places it squarely at a level 5. So what does a level 5 actually look like in the real world? The guide gives some really concrete examples, casual moments like guys lounging around with their shirts off after a swim, or practical things like fixing someone's tie before a formal event. The key descriptor it uses is adult, non-performed closeness. In other words, comfort without the circus. Okay, so we have the scores, we have the analysis. Now the guide shifts gears into actionable advice. If this is the system, here's the playbook on how to succeed within it. So, given this kind of culture, who is the ideal candidate? According to the guide, It is not the loudest person in the room. This system is looking for someone who is discreet, dependable, and composed, with a mindset that's all about contributing, not just consuming. And here, this is basically the tactical prep manual. The guide provides model answers to the questions you can predict you're going to get. And just look at the answer for what do you bring. It's not, oh, I'm a good guy. It's, I will own alumni ops and run 2 mentor nights. It is so specific, so concrete, and it demonstrates that contribution mindset we were just talking about. This is a masterclass in preparation. So what's the final verdict? After all the scores, all the playbooks, the guide boils it all down to a super clear profile of who actually is going to thrive here. The guide presents a really clear trade-off. The pros? You get a recognized chapter with a real alumni network and pretty low drama. The cons? Well, there's a lower ceiling on the party volume, it can feel a little insular or selective, and it absolutely requires self-discipline. It's a classic cost-benefit analysis. This quote just perfectly summarizes the entire explainer. It's the final distillation of the choice. The guide isn't trying to sell a product, it's defining an identity. It argues that this group is for someone who values composure, heritage, and results above everything else. And that brings us right back to that universal question. This whole deep dive into one small group, it really serves as a powerful case study for a much larger decision we all face. When choosing our tribe, what are we optimizing for? What metrics do we even use? Is it composure or is it chaos? And what does our answer say about us?